Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Yud in קידושין, as we learned for Shlem for Loza ben Ruma and Yosef Esriel ben Chai Michal. Now you want to keep your charts out today, the charts that we gave out yesterday, so we can follow this. The Mishnah said that according to Beis Shammai you need a dinner. We came out with three reasons. There was a fourth one, but the fourth one was discounted, and we had three reasons why Beis Shammai says you need a mirror with at least a pruta or Shabbat dinner, something worth a pruta. Beis Hillel says a pruta, Shabbat pruta, much smaller amount. Some Rav Yosef L'Meimer, the first of the wide lines in the Gemara. Some Rav Yosef L'Meimer pruta koltu, any amount. In other words, the pruta can be increased in value or devalued during the course of time. So whatever it happens to be worth at that point in time, that's what the rule that we go by. In other words, it wasn't a fixed amount. Whatever the pruta was, sometimes it's worth more, sometimes it's worth less. We learned kami pruta. The Mishnah said, didn't just say pruta, it said how much is a pruta? You should know it's worth 1/8 of an Italian isar. Okay, so it has a specific value to it. It's not something to go up and down. That was the time of Moshe's time. In Moshe's time, that's what it was worth. But over here, whatever the people computed at. In other words, over time, a penny can get devalued. Let's call pruta penny. Rav Dimi said, when Dimi came to Omer, Shiur of Samoy, Bedoro, of Samoy in Eretz Yisrael, he assessed the value, computed the value in his generation, Kami pruta, not only in Moshe's time, but even later on, it was also assessed to be 1/8 of an Italian Isra. Rabin came from Eretz Yisrael. He had a different Amar. He said, Rav Destoy, Rav Yanai, Rav Oshia, Shiur Kam Havi Pruta Ech Mishisha B'Isra Taki. So first of all, we have two different views. Is it 1/8 or 1/6 of an Italian Isser, according to this? But we'll deal with that later on. Does that mean that the Pruta has a different value? Not necessarily. We'll see. But the point is that it had a fixed value, even not in Moshe's time. Amar of Yosef, if that's what you say at a specific time, Hainu Tanina, say b'choshev kama prutas b'shnei slam. He says, well, if you're going to say that it has a specific value, how can that be? Because we have a brisa which says, go figure out how many prutas there are in 2 sellas. What do we mean by sella? A sella is the rabbi's word for the Torah's shekel. Okay. Now, how many prutas are there in two sellas? Yoser mi'alpayim, more than 2,000. Now, if you want to say it had a specific value and the pruta really did not change over time, how can that be? He says over there, go figure out how many prutas there are in 2 sellas, more than 2,000. Can there be more than 2,000? If you take a quick look at our chart, if you look at the chart, look down on the first 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 8th row on the chart. Okay, the first column. That's a sella. That's what we're dealing with. What the Torah calls a shekel, what the rabbis call the sella tzuri. How many prutas are there? It says. What's the number? 768. Okay, that would mean that how many are in 2 sellas? 1,536. Good. So that's how many prutas there are. How could you say though? How could Bryce say b'choshev? How many prutas are there in 2 sellas? More than 2,000. What do you mean more than 2,000? Hashtal Pine Love is not even 2,000. As Ram just enlightened us, there's only 1,536. So yes, how could there be more than 2,000 unless the pruta was devalued? So one of the elders said, no, you're reading it wrong. I learned that the price did not say there's more than 2,000. It said close to 2,000. So Alpha, so at the end of the day, it's only 1,536, 1,536, as we just said. Dapim. So how can you say close to 2,000? Since it's more than 1,500, really, half of 1,000. So we say it's close to 2,000. In other words, if it would be 1,400, you'd say it's a little over 1,000. Since it's over 1,500, you call it close to 2,000. So we haven't proved from there that the pruta has been devalued at all. But let's go back now and say, okay, the pruta has a fixed value. But you said before that one shita was that it was 1/8 of an Italian Isra, one shita was that it was 1/6. Isn't that a machlokas? Doesn't that make a difference as to how many, what the value of the pruta is? Gufa. Let's end as a Kiyasar of being the same thing we just had before. Shiur of Simoy Bidor of Simoy assessed it, computed it in his generation. Kami put how much the proof Mishmari so talking 1/8 of an Italian Israel. The Chazar Rabin came from Eretz Yisrael. All these cases when they came from Eretz Yisrael to Babel, they went back and forth. When they came from Eretz Yisrael to Babel. So Rav Dimi said 1/8. Kiyasar Rabin said Shiur of the story of Rav Yana Rav Moshe. These three rabbis. Kami prut how much the proof Ech Mishisha Beisar Italki. So it's mashma that proof had that value. Amalei Abai Rav Dimi. Nema at Barabin beflukted the Hani Tanoikim. If you and Rabin argue in the following machlokes of Tanoim, as those were the Tanya, Pruta Shamu Chachamim, how much is the Pruta? Echem Mishmoni Siritalki. Okay, that's the first rabbi. That's what you said, right? 1/8. How do you figure the 1/8? Now we're going to go into the detail, and the chart will help you understand that, right? Because as we said, Sheish Ma Kesef dinner. How much is a dinner? Look back now at the fifth row. A zuz, we said a zuz or a dinar, same thing. 192 prutas. How many ma? 6. Right. Look over in the silver area in the middle. There's 6 ma. 6 ma in a dinar. A ma is shnei pinyon. A ma is 2 pinyon. There's 2 pinyons in a ma. Okay, 2 pinyons in a ma. We can go with that. All right. Pinyon is up above, but that's what it would be worth in copper money in punjab. Okay, so a ma would be worth, and that ratio works out, right? Ratio works out as we'll see. So there's 2 punyan in a ma. So how many punyans are there in a dinar according to this? 6 times 2 is 12. 12 punyans in a ma. Right? A punyan shnei isern. There's 2 isers in a punyan. Now we're up to 24. 6 times 2 is 12, times 2 is 24. Shnei Isser. Isser, okay, so now we have how many dinars are there in a dinner? How many Isser are there? 6 times 2, that's 12, times 2 is 24. So there's 24 Issars in a dinar. 24 Issars in a dinar. Now let's pause for a moment, and you'll see that also in the chart on row number 5. Is it number 5 or number 6? Actually, number 6. I mean, I said before 5. It's row number 6. The row that has dinar or zuzah in there. So it tells you there's 6 ma, which is 12 punyons. You see that 6 times 2 is 12, and there's 24 isers. See those all in that row, in row number 6. Okay, so there's 24 isers in a dinar. Okay, and how much is an iser? An iser is shnei musmusin. That would mean there's 48 of those. Mismushnei kuntrikan, that means there's 96 of those. We keep multiplying by 2. Kuntrik shtei prutos, 96 times 2 is how much? 192. So there's 192 prutos. So if you look at all at row number 6 on the chart, so you see it right away there. A dinar is 6 ma, right? Which is 12 punyon, which is 24 isar, which is 192 prutos. So how many prutas are there in an isar? Very simple. Divide 24 into 192. What do you get? 192 divided by 24 is what? 8. So that's why you get that a pruta is 1/8 of an isar, right? There's 192 prutas in 24 isars. That means that a pruta is 1/8. Okay, that's the first sheet. Nimsa pruta achas mishmanim isar italki, back in Gemara. So you see that a pruta is 1/8 of Italian isar. The other Tana says, no, Omer, listen, this is how you look at it. Different words, not on our chart. Shlosha hadrasen lama. A ma has 3 hadrasen. Now, we already said, everybody agrees that there are 6 ma in a dinar. So now we're dealing with 6 times 3. 3 hadrasen in a ma. That means that there's 18 hadrasen in a dinar. Shnei hansen lahadras. 2 hansen for every address. So that would be what? We had 6 times 3 is 18, times 2 is 36. Shnei shemten lahanats, and there's 2 shemten in each hanas, so now we're up to 72. 36 times 2 is 72. And base prutas l'shaman, and there's 2 prutas in each shaman, so 72 times 2 is how much? 144. 144. Nimtza pruta achas mishishi ve'isari taki. So wait, if we say that how many prutas are there in a dinner? Not 192 like the first opinion, but like Shimon, there's 144, and we know that there's 24 isers in a dinner. So if 24 isers is the equivalent of 144 prutas, how many prutas are there in each is how many? What is the ratio of a pruta to iser? 1/6, right? 24 is 1/6 of 144. It's 1/8 of 192. 24, right, divided into 192 is 8. 24 divided into 144 is 6. So that means that a pruta is 1/6 of an iser according to the shita. Lema demar omer ketaram blacha. You Rabimi, who said what? That it's 1/8. That you go like the Tanakama, who says there's 192 prutas in a dinar. For Rabin the Omer Kapshim Malil, and Rabin holds like Kapshim Malil, who says very clearly that what? That there are that the pruta is 1/6 of a iser, mashma that the pruta had a different value. Amalei no. Bain Lididi, Bain Rabin, Aliva Tanakama. We both go like the Tanakama, that there are actually 192 prutas in a dinar, and therefore a pruta is 1/8 of an iser talki. Below kasha had the ikar isuri had this always. So the question is, did the iser value? Today we understand that when we live in Israel, understand it because you always look what's the shekel worth towards a dollar. If the dollar, if the shekel goes up against the dollar, that means that the shekel is being devalued, right? It's being devalued. If the shekel goes down against the dollar, then it's being increased in value. So that's what we're dealing with over here too. He says, yeah, one shita was that it was one when Shmuel said that it's 1/6 nimsa pruta achas mishish b'isur talki, and the first one said no nimsa. What did he say? Nimsa pruta achas mishmon. Is it 1/8 or 1/6? There's not really a machlokus in the value of the pruta. The pruta is the same. Question is what happened to the isar? Again, back in the Gemara. Let's finish. Amalei, Bain Didi, Bain Rabin, both of us agree that we go like the Tanakam, that there's 192 prutas, and we don't really disagree with Shmuel either. Question was, what happened to the Isser below Kasha? Had the Ikar Isuri, if the Isser went up in value, had the Zol Isuri, had the Ikar Isuri, if the Isser went up in value, kum Esrim Ba'arba Zuzah. So therefore, there are 24, are the 24 Isers in a dinar, which is a zuz, 24. If there's 24, right? There's 24, and there's 192 prutas in a dinar. So for every iser, you've got 8 prutas. So pruta is 1/8 of an iser. The zol, but if the iser went down in value, come plus and betray it. Now a zuz or a dinar is equal to 32. Not like on our chart where the iser is 24, but if the zuz is now 36 isers, that means the iser has been devalued like our shekel, which is going up. It's now up to close to 3.8 or something like that. It used to be 3.5, 3.3. We remember there was times when it was 4.5. We also remember a time when we had piastas and other things here, but whatever. But it's being devalued. So if there's 36 isers in the dinar, so the ratio of 36 to what? The ratio of 36 to 192 is what? 1/6 is a 6. So that's what we're talking about. So the pruta stays the same. The question is the isser that we're marketing against. Is the ratio of pruta to isser 1/8 or 1/6? Doesn't mean that the pruta got devalued or up and down. The isser changed in value. That's what we mean over here. Amar Shmuel. So that's what we're dealing with over here. Amar Shmuel. You can rest your charts for a few months. Amar Shmuel.
Why are we saying that we're always going through the Italian dollar? Why don't we say that it's a euro?
Good question.
And a dollar?
Quick question. Why are we going to Italian? Because that was the common thing. Just like the Sela Tsuri. Why talk about the Tsuri, the one from Tyre? Because that was what the common. Right, but that was what the common was. When the Torah says Esrim Geira Kesef, it also uses that lotion of Geira, which and the chart. Let's pull out the chart again. I think the chart says that Esrim Geira. There's a part where it's more here. You see the Geira, Esrim Geira. That's also based on what was so common at the time that the Torah was given. There was a common thing there, so they used what was the common amount, so we know what it's worth. So we talked about a pruta, where do we get that from? Because it has cheshivas to it. That's the minimal amount of money. That's what you need. The Beis Shammai says, no, you need more than that, either based on the fact that she wouldn't give herself over, or that you need something chashuv, or that it was learned out of Amavriya with the amount of money that decreases, then you can marry her off with the decreased amount, whatever's left there. We'll talk about that later on. Either way, you brought up yesterday, can you marry with that? You can't marry her with that because technically she gets married only with the original money that the father sold her for. Father sold her, so you have to get married with that money. You can't marry her now with a new star or a B or something like that. We'll talk more about that when we get into Amavriya. Yeah. Yeah, it's like what is a dollar worth? Is it 3.5 or 3.8? It's the same question. It's the same question. You can argue. Yeah, it could be. So that was our issue. Our issue was, is it the pruta worth different amounts at different times? So we're saying no. Even at the time of Moshe it was a pruta, and even at the time later on the Gemara was also the pruta was pretty much the same. It was let's say an eighth of an Isser Italki at the time of Moshe. It was eighth of a pruta later on in the time of the Gemara. Many hundreds of centuries later. So we're saying the pruta pretty much stays the same. But the question is, what are you measuring it against? You're measuring it against, let's say, the dollar. So sometimes there's more prutas to the dollar, sometimes less. Doesn't necessarily mean, look at it this way. Let's say that the shekel had the same buying power. Of course, we were living in inflationary times and stuff like that, but let's say the shekel has the same power. The question is, when you measure it against the dollar, is it worth more? Is it worth less? They're all complaining now. They go to Europe or they go to America and have to spend more money because you have to buy dollars or buy euros, and it's costing more of their hard-earned shekels. That's always what it is. You have to be concerned about the exchange rate. It's like people who are living on dollars and the dollar gets devalued when it goes down in value. When it used to be worth 4.5, it was one thing, and the people who are living on a fixed dollar income, all of a sudden, if it goes down to 3, they can't buy Shabbos. It's tough, right? You have to. The idea is that a person should. That the ideal is that you should be spending the same kind of money that you're earning. But it doesn't always work out that way for many people who made Aliyah. Amar Shmuel, Kitchen Batama. Let's say he married her with a date, not a date that you go on a date that you eat, right? Amar Shmuel, Kitchen Batama. Afilu Omei Kur tomorrow bedinner. Even if a truckload, of course, a large amount, truckload of tamarim go for a dinner, Mekudeshes is Mekudeshes, even though each one, the har might be worth less than a Shava Pruta. Chashin Shema Shava Pruta b'Madai. Maybe in some far off Yenerek belt in Madai, in Mead, maybe someplace far away, maybe it's worth a Pruta. So you have to be concerned, maybe it's a good marriage. She might say, she accepted the marriage, and somebody says, what do you mean? It's not a Shava Pruta. We hold like Beis Hill, of course, you go for Shavruta. Ivananta Beis Hill Loma B'Pruta B'Shavruta. It's got to be with a Pruta, and this doesn't. We don't know that this is worth a Pruta. If you're going to say that a truckload of dates you married with one date, we know it's worth you. Then what are your rules? There's no proof with it. Anything could be worth a Pruta somewhere. It's low kasha. To make for sure that she's married, then you have to have Shavruta. Here we're talking about you have to be choshesh. Maybe it's worth a pruta. We don't know for sure, but maybe she wants to get married to someone else. You need to get. That's what Shmuel said. So Shmuel said you have to be concerned. Maybe it's worth something else. Hogav story. The Aktish Bezav the Averdi or the different years that there are he married her with a bundle of cotton. Yes, Rav Shimachia Kamed Rav. Shimachia was sitting in front of Rav. Kamayin was checking into it. Kama is B'Shavah Pruta Ilolo. He says, look. If it's worth a Shava Pruta, they're married. If it's not a Shava Pruta, no. Be less by Shava Pruta low. And if there's no Shava Pruta, if he can't determine that it's worth a Shava Pruta, she's not married. Shmuel said, your word, maybe in some place where they don't have cotton, maybe it's worth a Shava Pruta. It's low kasha. Because the same answer we gave before. He was just checking out if it's possible that it's worth a Shava Pruta. If it's possible, it's impossible, then you could say, fine, it's not. But if it's worth the Shava Pruta, then if it's possibly worth the Shava Pruta, it's possibly קידושין. Okay, that's what Shmuel said, and you all like Shmuel. Okay, Rav Shimi Bachir went like Shmuel. A different story. A man married a woman with a piece of black marble, piece of black or bluish marble. Okay, that's what because like Masharle, this was sitting and was trying to assess it. He says, look, if it's worth the Shava Pruta, they're married. If it's not worth the Shava Pruta, they're not married. The less by Shava Pruta low, And if it doesn't have a Shava Pruta, for sure not married. Shmuel Chashina. Didn't Shmuel just say that maybe it's worth Shava Pruta somewhere else? Rav Chisda lo Savala to Shmuel. Chisda does not like Shmuel. He says if it's not determined here that it's with the Shava Pruta, she's not married, and that's it. Now in this story, I'm going to add on something that both Rashi refers to and Tosfos refers to it specifically. What happened over here was there were two brothers, Reuben and Shimon. Reuben married her with a piece of black marble. Now Rav Chisda was sitting to determine was it worth. What happened was after he married with a piece of black marble, they said maybe it's not worth anything, and the brother married. The brother gave her a pruta. He married her with a real ring, let's say with a real קידושין. Now we've got a problem. Because if you're Masupik, even if it's possibly she was married to the first guy, and he has to give her a divorce. Once he gives her a divorce, the brother can't marry her. Brother can only marry a brother's wife if the first brother died with no children. But if he divorced her, he can't marry her. So here was a problem. It's not so simple. Oh, it's a suffix. Suffix, give her a get. Yeah, give her a get, and the other guy can't. The other guy's marriage is invalid. So Rav Chisda didn't hold like Shmuel. Amar le Ime. So his mother told him. His mother said to him, "What do you mean? V'ahu yoma the ketcha havi b'shava pruta." You said that there was no shava pruta there. That the black marble was not worth a shava pruta. He says if there's no shava pruta, it's not worth anything. So Rav Chisda sat there. He says no, it wasn't worth a shava pruta, and the second marriage is valid. So his mother told him, "What do you mean? There was that day that he married her. It was with the shava pruta. The day that he gave it to her, he was Malay. Lav kol kaminach asher slabasra. You're not empowered to answer her on the second brother, on the basra, on the second guy." See, Rav Chisda, look, take a little small toss. Rav Chisda, Allah Savik Shmuel. You can't say קידושין ספק עליה, משום דמאי שקידשה אחם. The brother married her. Achakach bepruta. Rav Chisda קידושין. Rav Chisda came to say the first marriage was no marriage, and the second marriage, that the second brother's marriage was valid. You're not believed. You're not empowered to answer this woman on the second brother. It was a suffix. It became she needs a get. So that's what Rav Chisda told his mother. You're not empowered to do that. Lav Hainu. Is this not the story? Take a look at the base. Lav Hainu Yehudis. Isn't this like the story of Yehudis? The visit Rav Chia. Yehudis, the wife of Rav Chia, she was in terrible labor because she gave birth to twins. Rashi points out that story where she gave birth to twins. Two sets of twins maybe, but she gave birth to twins. Davos Latzar later, she had terrible birth pangs. Amrle, she said to her husband as she was giving birth, Amrle Aim, my mother told me that Kibabach Avuch Kedushe Kizutris, that my father, accepted קידושין from some other shmendrik when I was a little girl. In other words, I must already be married to you. After she had these terrible birth pangs, she says that, yes, like a woman says, I'm not going to, that's it, we're not living together anymore. That's what she says. She said that to, he says, my mother told me that I was actually married to somebody else. My father had accepted קידושין when I was a baby. The stories, fights and families break out. And he says, the husband, there's stories like that. He says, I accepted קידושין from somebody else. And I'm not going to tell you who it is, and your daughter's going to be in a guna. You're not going to be able to get married. That's what happened over here. That's what she said. So he told her, your mother is not empowered to us. Your mother's not believed. She's not empowered to forbid you to marry me. The husband said to her, you're not going to live with me again because you had birth pangs, and you're going to give me the story about that. Your mother said that that your father accepted קידושין for you, the birthing lady. From somebody else, and now you can't be married to me, and the kids would be mamzerim too, apparently, right? Now you're not empowered to do that. You have witnesses. Amrlay. So that's what Rav Chisda told his mother too. You're not empowered to say that it was worth a shava prut on that day. Who says? I checked into it. I checked the papers. They used to have a little graph in the paper each day, what it was worth. It was never worth, the black stone was never worth, the black marble wasn't worth anything. You have no proof. Rabban said, Amai, why did I not believe? Hoika Sadi Bidis. In Yiddish, there was a place called Yiddish, the Yodi, the Yom Havi Beis Shavaput. Okay, you say that, but there are witnesses somewhere else who were here that day, and they could testify that it was worth a Shavaput on that day. It says, Hashtamiya, he said to them, what was the Girsa? The Girsa of the base, yeah. Hashtamiya Lesnu. Right now, they're not here. Lesnu, they're not here right now. Lesnu, come on, they're not here in front of us. I don't care if there's Adam there. I got to look at what's right here. There's no Adam right now. Lav Hainu Rav Chanina, it's like the story of Chanina. Rav Chanina, Eideh B'tzadista V'te'asar. The Adam are in somewhere else on the Asar. What was the story there? Rashi quotes the story about Ksubas. The daughters of Shmuel were taken into captivity by Goyim. They were freed from captivity. They kept the captors outside, and they brought in each girl individually. There was no witnesses that they were taken into captivity. There was no, they were rescued, and they came in, or they showed up, and the rabbis interviewed each of the girls individually, and each one said, was she violated by the Goyim? She says no. She says, I was taken into captivity, but I wasn't violated. If there's Adam that she was taken into captivity, then she may not be believed to say that she was virtuous and nothing happened to her, right? But if she herself was the one who did it, Peshas or Peshiter, they only knew that she was taken into captivity because of her own testimony, and they let her go, right? So they said, Mr. Kaman says, Lav Hainu Rav Chanina, Eideh B'tzadistam V'te'asar. You're not going to, just because there's Adam somewhere else that knew Adam somewhere else that knew that they were taken into captivity, doesn't mean anything. So if it's the same thing, you have no witnesses right now that it was worth a Shavapruta that day. And if there's no witnesses, I'm going to paskin that it wasn't worth a Shavapruta that day. And the second brother's קידושין with the Shavapruta is valid. Abaya and Rava don't hold the word of Chisda did. But if Chisda said it's not worth a Shavapruta, even though there's Adam somewhere else that may say it's worth a Shavapruta. Imikila b'shvuya, if the Rabbanon were makel by a shvuya and they believed her, they said, there's no Adam. We discount the Adam that are somewhere else who knew that she was taken into captivity. The two girls were taken into captivity. They're not here right now. What we have in front of us is a girl who says, I was captive, but I was not violated. We believe her. There we were makel by a shvuya, the menavla nafsha, because she can make herself repulsive. A girl taken into captivity, the guy might want to fool around with her, but she can make herself disgusting if she wants to get herself dirty and filthy and ragged, etc. So she knows how to keep the goyim at bay. Make herself repulsive to the captors. We're going to be making Eshes Ish. Happen over here, he gave her a piece of marble. You want to claim that she's not it's not a Shavapruta. Yeah, but there's Adam somewhere else that is worth Shavapruta. Well, when Adam aren't here right now, you're going to be makel about that, right? And therefore, Rabbi and Rava did not hold the Rav Chisda, not because Rashi says, let's feel Rav Chisda, it is not because they didn't hold of the basic idea that he said, but let's feel Rav Chisda, they were makel over there, but over here it's possible there's Adam, right? And therefore, not because of the issue of basically held like Shmuel, right? So Rashi says over here, let's feel Rav Chisda latir mishum dika because of that reason. And Gemara says on the la mishum Shmuel and goes well. That's explained in the next line. Let's go to the next line. Ishtar mehim mishpach b'Surya. Now what happened was that Rav Chisda paskin that way, that the first marriage was no marriage. The second brother's marriage was therefore a marriage, right? And he had children. The children could possibly be what? Mamzerim, because maybe the first marriage to the first brother was okay. Upash Rabbanamina. The Rabbanan stayed away from that family because they said it's possible. Not because Abai and Rava held of Shmuel that concerned that maybe Shemesh Shavapruta b'Madai held Mishum Desfir Luka Abai of Rava. In other words, not because they held like Shmuel that you always have to be concerned, maybe it's a Shavapruta, but they're like Abai and Rava who say if there's Adam somewhere else, they know it. We have to be concerned about that. We have to take that into consideration. Not to say hold of Shmuel. Not Shmuel that's possibly worth it. Shmuel said, well, I don't know if it's worth a Shavapruta. Maybe it's not worth a Shavapruta. Maybe it's worth a Shavapruta in Madai. Maybe. That's Shmuel's chashash. Abai Rabba said not because of that. Not because of chashash. Maybe. Here we know there's Adam somewhere else who could testify that it's a Shavapruta, and therefore they're concerned about that. Another story. A man married off a married woman. He gave her a myrtle branch, b'shuka in the marketplace, which was a immoral thing to do. Shachor Rav Acha bar Huna l'kamer Rav Yosef. He asked him this question: Kai Gavnai, what do you do in a case like this? He gave her a myrtle branch, married her in the shuk, right? What is that? Is that considered? What do you say about that, man? Shalach lei nagde. Give him malchus for Abana, of course. Malchus madus. You give him lashes, like Rav, we'll explain Rav in a minute. It's tough to get the but she needs to get, because maybe the myrtle branch is worth, maybe it was close to Sukkot and was worth more money somewhere else when they needed the myrtle branch, right? Vitzrach Gita Gishma, you have to give her a get. She needs a get. The Rav, why do you say give him Malchus? The Rav gave Malchus for the following things. Number one, it was considered immoral just to marry her off and to get married in the marketplace, like you're buying meat or something. Also, Keshbi, even though Kiddushin Bia works in Torah, as we've learned, but it's considered immoral to do that today. Getting married without a prior discussion, just walking over to her and say, will you marry me? Like that, without any prior discussion. We had before, remember we had that in Gittin, on the Daf Yomi there, that a man sent a get to his wife, and then he voided it, right? He voided it. He got a bezin together, he got people, said, I void the get. Now the shliach may not know about it. Give her the get. She's still really a married woman because he voided the get, nullified it, and she's going to marry somebody else. So everybody said, if you do that, you shouldn't do that. And if you do that, you give him malchus. A man was forced to give a get, either because he was impotent or because he beat her or because of whatever reason it was. The rabbis forced him to give a get. And he said, yeah, I consent. And then he told people on the side, I'm really giving it under duress. I don't want it to be a get. So that also causes problems. If you harass, a man was called to court by he got a subpoena from the bailiffs, and he harassed them. Get malchus for that too. If a person had a cherem, a person was put into under the ban for 30 days, and he didn't try to rectify it, to make put the ban into remission by repenting or by going back on whatever he did. All these cases, apparently, Rav gave malchus. If a man stayed in his mother-in-law's house, if he slept in his mother-in-law's house, for a period of time, Rashi says, because maybe Chas v'Chalila he would have bia with his mother-in-law. So if he slept at his mother-in-law's house, that wasn't good. So he gave malchus for people who did that. So Gemara says the dairain the cholaflo only if he slept there, if he lived in the house, and not if he just passed by. But was a story with the son of the cholaf who passed by his mother-in-law's door. But Nagir Rav Sheshes gave him malchus just for going near the mother-in-law's house. Ahu made him there was a difference because they were under suspicion, that he was under suspicion of getting too close to his mother-in-law. Okay, I guess times were different in those days. Anyway, the point is that he gave malchus for all those kinds of things. Now, they said, Rav didn't really give malchus in all those cases, unless he had bia with her, without prior discussion. In other words, only not just mekadosh bia, but rather mekadosh bia without having prior discussion. Some say even if you made a shidduch, even if you had a discussion and you arranged it before you have prior arrangement, you should pritzusa, because it's considered immoral to get married by a bia without doing it with a kesef or shtar. Ahu gaver the kodesh b'tzif sadasa. A man got married to a woman with a mat made out of myrtle branches. A mat. They said a mat made out of myrtle branches is not worth the shavakuta. Listen to this. Amalu tikdish ba'arba zuzei de isba. There's 4 zuz that are in the mat, that are hidden in the mat. They're stuck inside the mat. Let her get married with that. Now, when he gave it to her, she didn't know about the 4 zuz. He just gave her a cheap, twig mat made out of twigs, made out of myrtle twigs. And they said, that's not worth the shofar. He says, well, there's 4 zuz in there. Shaklas of ishtika. So she took it. Doesn't mean she took the mat originally, but she was quiet now. Now, if he gave her them, instead of marrying you with the tabazo, with this ring or with this money, okay, that's pretty clear. Here he gave her a mat, and the mat wasn't worth anything, but there was 4 zuz hidden in there. Now she was quiet. Amarava, This is being quiet after the money was given. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean she agreed to it. So she didn't give it back. That wasn't the proposition. The proposition was marry me with this mat. The mat wasn't with the shavuot. Then he said, well, there's 4 prutas in there. Well, at the time that he gave her the money and she agreed to the marriage, there was no mention of the 4 zuz. So what's with the 4 zuz now? Maybe he's just giving it to her a gift now, or she didn't say anything. So Rabbi says that's nothing. There's no marriage here. It clearly wasn't worth the shavuot. The mat wasn't worth the shavuot pruta, and the money came afterwards. Slav klum. All right. So he says doesn't mean anything. Rashi says where before the lines get wide. When she was the most, she didn't know there was money inside. She doesn't care. Okay, there's money in there, but you married me with the man, not with the money. I didn't accept I didn't accept marriage or the betrothal for the 4 zuz. The 4 zuz came later on. How do I know this idea that something that came after the fact and she was quiet? How do I know that? If he gave her if he said afterwards there's 4 zuz, okay, marry me with the 4 zuz, okay, you marry with the 4 zuz, but he didn't say that. He just says 4 zuz inside, and she was quiet. How do I know if she was quiet after the thing took place, after the marriage took place, or the supposed marriage took place? It wasn't with the shavuot pruta, and there was money there after, and she was quiet. How do I know that it's meaningless? The Tanya, he said like this. Let's say he says, "Kinsi sella zub." Do me a favor, hold this cellar, which is a large amount of money. Right? How many prutas are there in a cellar? We just said 700 and what? 768, right? A lot of us there. He says, listen, but he didn't say married. He said, listen, can you watch this money for me? Can you? I'm giving it to you as a deposit. Can you hold this money? And then he said, no, it's got to marry me with it. Please marry with it. You take this as your wedding gift. If as he's giving it to her, he said, don't make it a deposit. I'm giving it to you to get married. Then it's Mekudeshes. After he gave her the money, then he said, no, don't make it for a deposit. By the way, keep it for a marriage. Ratza Mekudeshes, lo Ratza Mekudeshes. At that point, if she wants to marry, she can marry. Lo Ratza Mekudeshes. In other words, she didn't agree to get married when he first gave her the money. When he first gave her the money, he gave it to her as a deposit. Now he says, oh, by the way, keep it for a קידושין. So what do you say there? Now, it's not like a halva. We had before in above that if he lent her money and then he said, I lent you $100. Now he says, a day later, he says, oh, by the way, the money I lent you, keep it. That'll be kesedish. It's not good. Why? Because that milvah that money was made to spend. She owed him a different $100. Here, it's the same $100. It's the same seller. But he said, first gave it to her as a deposit, then he says, marry with it. So if he said marry with it before he gave it to her as he's giving it to her, okay, she agreed. Right? She accepted the money, she agreed. But after he gave her the money, then he said, marry me with that money that I gave you before as a deposit. If she wants to get married, it's a marriage. If she doesn't want to, ain't a mikdeshes. Now, what do you mean she wants to? My brother. What do you mean, my ratza, my lo ratza? Ilay maratza damar ain. If she says, yes, I want to marry with you, lo ratza damar lo. She said no. What now? That means machlal the reisha. When in the beginning we said, what do we do the reisha? The reisha was, he says, if he said that as he was giving me the money, right? When he's giving her the money, she's mekudeshes. If he says that after he gave her the money, then it depends if she wants to or not. What does that mean? That when he gave her the money, if he said that as he's giving her the money, then she's mekudeshes, even if she says, I don't want to get married. The man hands her $100, gives her a ring, and says, marry with her. She says, I don't want to marry you. And she takes the ring. I don't want to marry. She doesn't accept it. You can't force it on her. It has to be with her consent. So what does that mean? If he said that after he gave her the money, then it depends if she said yes or no. What do you mean? And if he smashed with that in the ratio where he said it as he's giving her the money, then it doesn't depend if she says yes or no. Of course it depends if she says yes or no. Smash with the ratio where you're saying he said that as he's giving it to her, Kiamra lo nami avikidushin. Even if she said no, it's a kedushin. Am I? But Kamra lo, she says, I don't want to marry you. He took, if you give her a ring, he says, marry me with this money. And she says, no, I don't want to marry you. And she takes the ring. So she's not married. She says, I don't want to marry you. Elalav, well, whatever it was, then he could say, give me back the ring. I'm not giving it to you as a gift. Elalav, it must mean Ratza Damar Ein, La Ratza Dishtika. Must mean this. Ratza, if after, we said afterward, if he said afterwards, and it's a pikadot, it's not a ava. Elav Ratza Damar Ein, if she says, okay, yes. I agree that the pikadon that you gave me, the money's right here, right now, and you handed it to me. I want it to be marriage fine. Laura, so the shtika, she was quiet. She was quiet. Because if she was quiet after didn't say anything, it doesn't mean anything. So the same thing in the case with the mat. He gave her a mat which wasn't with the shav pruta. Then he said, "Oh well, there's 4 zuz," and then she didn't say anything. She held on to it. She didn't say anything. So he didn't say anything. It doesn't mean anything. She didn't accept that money. Kashaba bapum nahara b'shmeid Rafuna braid Rav Shua. Rav Shua asked this question in Pamar. How can you compare these two cases? The first case of the mirror with the mat with the twigs to the case where he gave her pikadon. When you gave it to her as a pikadon, that means she's responsible for it, right? Savra, she figures, Isha Dinalu, oh, now you want to marry with it? If I throw it back at him, it breaks as I give it back to him. I'm a shomer. I'd have to pay for it. That's why she didn't want to give it back to him. She's afraid if something happens to her, it gets lost. I'm responsible for it. That's why you could say that she held on to it and didn't say anything. It doesn't mean she's married. She's just afraid to throw it back at him. But over here, gave it to us קידושין. If she doesn't want it, let her throw it back. What does she care? She says, I don't want it. Don't give it to me. I'm not responsible for it. So in this case, the fact that she was quiet sort of indicates that she agreed to the marriage. When he said, no, there's 4 zuz in there, and she kept it, so it's mashma, she agreed to the marriage. He did give it to her. It was just like a delayed reaction, a delayed penalty. He says, I gave it to you before, now I'm marrying you with it. He said before you can't be mekadosh with the halva, but with it because you could. So she said it back. So therefore, if she agreed to it, it is a good marriage. If she didn't give the money back, it is marriage. He said a Reb Mukadeshly, but the first thing that he gave her the mat wasn't with the shofar. Then he said, well, there's 4 zuz in there. If she was quiet, apparently she assented, she agreed. You think all the women are such bekim that they know the lachas of shomer? If I was a shomer, then I'm responsible for it. If I'm not a shomer, you gave it to me, you think I'm not. Maybe she said also, I didn't know. I was afraid to throw it back. Maybe it would break, or maybe I would lose it, or whatever, or the mat would break. For it. So therefore, maybe that's the reason why she didn't give it back. And it is like the case of the pikadon of the seller. She was afraid that she would be responsible if something happened to her. That's why she didn't say anything. Shachar Ravacha Rav coming to Ravina. He asked him, Kai Gavmai. He asked Ravina, so what's the halacha in this case? Would you say he gave her the mat, and then afterwards he said, there's 4 zuz in there, and she didn't say anything? Is she married or not? Shalach lei. Anan lo shmil on how to Rav Huna bar Rav Shua. Rav Huna bar Rav Shua brings up a good point, meaning that the cases are different. In the second case where he gave her the seller and then she was quiet, there, you say her being quiet doesn't mean anything because she was afraid to break it. She was afraid to throw it back at him. So it doesn't mean that she's married. But in the case of the mat, she should have given it back. So you raised the kasha on that and said, well, if she's not such a Talmud Chacham, what does she know? But maybe that is a difference. And maybe the fact that she didn't say anything when she found out the 4 zuz means that she agreed to the marriage. That makes a difference between the seller, the case of the pikadon, and the case of the mat. Atun, you heard of his point, and he says maybe it is a marriage in the case of the mat. You have to be concerned about that. You have to take that into consideration. Maybe she is married and you would need a get. All right, tomorrow's daf will start from here. This case of the woman also was selling things, other cases like that, and it'll be on the podcast. And on Sunday morning, Mitzvah Hashem, we'll pick it up with the second to the last line on Shabbos stuff. And Yigil on the days at the bottom, or we talk about the Yavama. Yeah, we'll pick it up from there. Mitzvah Hashem. Have a good Shabbos, everybody.